He has poured on us His mercies that we don't deserve. He's brought them up against us in countless numbers. He's built a bulwark around us. He's built a foundation around us that's not going to crumble. We are still standing. Most of you have been saved for a long time. And you're still standing. Because what God has built around us can handle us. If you've been saved, you may be down to the count of 9. And how often have we got down to the count of 9? And don't know if we will be able to get up. But guess what? We always get up. You know why? Because God has built in us. I don't know why He lets us get down to 9. I would prefer 3 and 4, wouldn't you? I'd get down to 9. And I've been down to 9 on several occasions, haven't I? And I'm ready just to be counted out. It's much easier to be counted out and to keep getting back up. But unfortunately, I do get back up by God's grace. He's built a bulwark of His grace against our souls. He has poured a ceaseless number of kindness upon our hearts. He has overwhelmed us with unmerited favor and carried all before Him on His arms of love. And He says, I beseech you therefore, as Paul said, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies. It is the proper thing to do. It is the only possible thing to do. It is the only fitting answer we can give to love so amazing, so divine. If you understand Romans 11, 1 through 11, and understand it, then when you come to chapter 12 and verse 1, that we are to give our bodies to Him, you're saying that is the least that we can do. That is the least we can do after all that God has done for us. The more you understand what Christ has done for us and saved us from, the easier it is to say, to give Him my body is the least thing that I can do. So He says, I beg you, in the language of grace, not law. I beg you, not because it's the law, but by His grace. There's a much difference in asking you to do it because of God's grace than to say you've got to do it or you go to hell. There is no thunder here from Mount Sinai. Moses commanded, Paul exhorts. Moses commanded, Paul exhorted. Could Paul have commanded? Well, he told Philemon that he could have given him a command, but he didn't. Paul doesn't command. He says, I beg you. I have learned that you can command people to do something and they'll resent it. If you plead with them on the mercies of God to do it, then they do it from their heart. What an astonishing word to come from God. From a God against whom we have sinned and under whose judgment we were. What a word to us believers, a race of sinners so lately enemy with God, he said, I beseech you. God says to each and every one of us in this class, I beseech you, I urge you, I give you comfort, I want you. God is sovereign. God can command to tell you to do it, or else. He did in the Old Testament. But he comes along and he says, I beseech, I urge you with comfort that you give your body to Christ, to me. And Paul had authority from Christ to command us. The end of all true religion is to bring men to God. From Him they have fallen, and to Him must they be restored. Whatever instructions have not this object in view are a small value. The gospel itself would be empty speculation if it did not teach us to hope for some practical effects. If we had all of this theology, which never told us to do anything, it's just theology, it's just teaching. Teaching is teaching what God said. Preaching is then expecting you to appeal to you to do it. If all I ever did was teach you the first 11 chapters, I have not completed my task. Normally I say pastor, but I am a preacher. I finally figured this out. A preacher, teacher. I am more of that than a pastor. I try to be a pastor, but I'm not good at it. A teacher is the first 11 chapters of Romans. A preacher is 12 through 16. A preacher is 12 through 16. A preacher is, a teacher is 1 through 11, and a preacher is 12 through 16. I'm instructing you as a teacher. As a preacher, I'm urging you to apply what you have learned. And most of the time, preachers are overboard 12 through 16. And I think that's why so many start out and then quit. Because they've never gained the understanding of why they do that. The Apostle Paul, he expects, there are some who would separate principle from practice. So then another word that I could use is the word principle. And practice. Right? So what is the principles? The principles is 1 through 11. Are Ephesians 1 to 4. Practice is 12 through 16. You follow me the line of thought? First, the principles. Secondly, the practice. The reason most people never get to the practice, they don't understand the principle. If they use the practice without the principle, it becomes illegalism. If I teach you to practice doing something without you understanding why you do it, then it becomes a legalistic matter, and you hate doing it. So what I try to do is to help you understand why God tells you to do it, instead of me telling you what to do. There are some who would separate practice from principle, but not so with the Apostle Paul. He expected not fruit without the root. He wanted fruit been produced by the root. If you have a good root, you're going to have good fruit. If you have a poor root, the fruit is going to be terrible. Correct? If you don't have a good, solid root system, it's not going to produce fruit. And you wonder if there's no fruit in your life, it is because there's no doctrine in your life. What motivates me is what Christ has done for me. I don't do it out of legalism. Without laying a foundation. But when his foundation was firmly laid, he deferred not to build upon it. In all the preceding parts of this epistle, he has shown how sinners are to find acceptance with God, and has proved the sovereignty of God in the disposal of his blessings. But having finished his argument, he does not leave us there. And now that you've learned all the principles, he doesn't just stop there. Now that you've learned all of this, it is like, how can I illustrate this? Let's say you go through 5 years of learning to be a doctor and learning all the aspects of being a doctor of engineering or mechanics, doctor of science, and you spent 5 years in the college learning all the principles of chemistry, biology, and sociology. When you get into the 5 years, you don't do anything. You've got all the knowledge, but you decide, I ain't going to do anything about this. I'm going to retire and do nothing for the rest of my life. So you know how to be a doctor of science. So you know chemistry. So you know biology. You have all the knowledge, but you're not doing anything with it. What have you accomplished? Nothing. You've learned everything that's been taught, and you don't do anything with it. You have not submitted your body to do the work of the body of learning that you